You need you need to show them your credit card, and then
yeah, then they'll really run away.
that's what attract the ladies, the credit card.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, you're talking about flashing your money around.
That's what he does, I guess. Yeah.
Well, you cannot take it with you, Charles. You have to use it, spend it.
Well, I have nothing against that theory. I mean, that's fine, you know. You know, the only thing is, you know, it's just the name of the game is you don't want to run out of it before you get to the end.
That's the whole issue.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's
And
nice.
it's hard to play.
Yeah, it's nice to have it up until, you know, I mean, you can't use it anymore, and then after that, you don't really care. But there are other issues to deal with. But
Yes, right.
hmm.
So you're going to be gone the rest of the week learning how to give us more advanced technology.
Yeah, something like that. That's kind of the idea.
So you won't be here on Thursday? No.
No, won't be here on Thursday or Friday. I will be back next.
Can we make plans without you?
You can make whatever plans you want.
I'm asking you permission.
You know, we could talk about that. Okay, permission thing. You know, they tell you, Armando, okay, it's always better to beg forgiveness than ask permission, right?
That's right.
Anytime you're dealing with an attorney, you want to keep that in mind, okay? You don't want to ask them, you know, can I do this? Because their typical answer is, it doesn't matter what it is, including take your next breath. The answer is no, because, you know, they're always afraid that somebody's going to find some way to sue you for it, right? But so, you know, you do what you do, and then you know, basically beg forgiveness. It's like, oh, well, okay, you know, I didn't know. I didn't mean to step on your toes. I'm sorry, you know. I mean, I just kind of accidentally, you know, kicked your dog, whatever, you know, whatever that is.
Sure, I ask forgiveness to the Lord Almighty every day because I don't know how to behave. So how more forgiveness I'm going to ask?
Well, maybe when you get older, you'll learn how to behave.
Yeah. 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 Well, you know, we could go down so many different roads on that one. We won't even do that. Yeah. Hey, Veronica, how you doing?
Hello, how are you?
Oh, hi,
Good.
Veronica.
I would say happy
Hi, John and
Monday,
Armando.
but it's actually Happy Tuesday. And let's not forget June. June's here, you know.
Hi, June.
Hi, June.
Lorraine.
Lorraine is here
How
now.
you doing? All right.
Hi,
Oh,
Lorraine.
Elon's finally showing up. Okay.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody's coming in.
Yeah. Well, give them a minute, you know. It
What
takes.
about Miss Bernice and Bob?
Yeah, she's not around yet, and I haven't seen Eloise. Of course, I think didn't Eloise say something?
Was it Eloise or Bernice? One of them said something.
Well, Bernice was supposed to take you yesterday to the most exclusive restaurant in town.
Did she take you?
No.
Piccadilly.
No, I didn't. No, I didn't pursue that. You know.
You two discussed that last time that she's gonna take you to Piccadilly.
I know. I was just having fun.
Eloise and Bob probably have that class that kind of stuff.
Yes, Tuesday.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. No. Okay.
And I thought Bernice said she wasn't going to be here.
Yeah, I think she said that she wasn't. And then Jacqueline, for some reason, sent me an email. She's having some kind of computer issue, and she kind of feels like it's going to take her a whole week to resolve it. So, anyway. So you know, and of course, Richard showed up for the class yesterday, and so did Elon. Hey, Elon. Yeah, but there was no class yesterday. So
No.
Yeah, they both logged in, and I'm like, okay.
They forgot that yesterday was supposed to be out on the grill cooking.
That's right. Yeah.
That's the American tradition.
Yeah. On is that what Labor Day is all about? Is you cook on Labor Day?
Yeah,
I don't really remember that.
you cook on Labor Day and then criticize the government. That's what you do on Labor Day.
Why,
Oh.
why save it for that day? You know. You know. I mean, come on now. You know, we're older people. We have opinions. You know, we're going to share them regardless. Anyway,
Well, here, but don't move to Texas.
why not? They have opinions in Texas.
They are creating some law over there. Your opinion.
He's
don't
talking
count.
about the SCOTUS case from the
Yeah.
abortion case.
Well, there's going to be
And
lots.
it's something else coming also over there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know, though, the funny thing about, Texas, without getting too deep down the rabbit hole on this, is that their demographics have radically changed, really within like the last 5 or 6 years. So right now, it's about 50-50. It's like anything that comes to vote, it really kind of all depends on, can you get the people to, show up, to actually vote.
Well, that's a whole nother discussion. Let's not get into that because I'll go on and on.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about redistricting and
Oh,
who
yeah.
gets to do that and how unbalanced it is. Yeah, but it's
I'll listen.
Well, and of course, Georgia is not much different, really.
right, exactly.
Yeah. But, hey, this kind of stuff goes on all the time. And yet, regardless, the world keeps spinning. People keep doing what they're doing. And, you just kind
Most of us do. Some
Yeah.
of us don't.
Yeah. Well,
Well,
I mean,
Veronica,
we all try to move forward. So,
Veronica, what did you cook yesterday for your family and your friends?
Well, we are still in the pandemic, so the entertainment is like zilch.
Veronica, that's not an excuse.
yeah. Actually, I thought
Yeah,
what was it? Was it Veronica? It was one of you ladies who were saying that you don't cook anymore. Period.
it was me.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think it was somebody else too, though. There's a couple.
Oh, okay.
Like, why are we? It's like we've raised our kids, stuff like that. We're not going to cook anymore. It's like we're done.
No.
It's like,
Right.
okay.
I mean, I can cook. I just don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-mm.
Well, it kind of comes down to if you really enjoy cooking, and if you only have you to cook for, then I mean, sometimes it's fun, but other times it's like, I don't feel like bothering. So.
Right.
I want to ask you a question to all of you.
Okay.
In the past, I used to enjoy to going to Burger King and McDonald's. Now I go sometimes, but it don't appeal to me, that food, neither Waffle House. I don't know. It don't appeal to me, that kind of food anymore.
So
Because it's probably not good for you. It's full of sodium and
Yeah.
other stuff. And we need to, when we do cook and eat, we need to try to eat really good food for our bodies.
Yeah, but I don't like it anymore like I used to.
No, because it's not good for you. It's high sodium. You don't know what's in it.
Your body.
That part I know.
Your body rejects it too.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
I think too, it's like over time. I remember, and this is a long time ago, you used to be able to go to McDonald's and get a really good hamburger. Okay.
right.
And
Yeah,
it
used
looked
to.
like, it smelled like, and it tasted like hamburger because it was a hamburger. Now,
Right.
that meat patty, that's what they call a meat patty. There's
Right.
very little meat in that. Okay.
Yeah.
It's almost kind of,
filler.
it's kind of almost on the borderline of saying, you're pretty much either eating a vegetarian burger. It's all just filling and junk. There's nothing
Yep.
in it that's really meat. So, the quality of food, in fast food, because it's all about making profit, right? Is
Right.
about how do we sell a burger that's kind of the idea of a burger, but we can really cut our cost, and make it as cheap as possible. So,
Yeah, it's dicey.
yeah. So anyway, yeah. But I personally, I stay away from all fast food. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. And even when I go to the grocery store, there's a way of shopping in the grocery store, and they tell you, shop on the outside aisles.
Yes.
Don't ever venture into the middle, because there's nothing there that's really food. Okay.
Right.
Literally.
Only when you need laundry detergent.
Well, yeah.
Well,
laundry
no, the
detergent-
middle aisles, the middle aisles have all of the frozen vegetables that are very
Come on, Miss Jean.
Yeah. Well,
okay.
yeah. I don't buy frozen vegetables. Not that they're really particularly bad for you or anything like that. Actually, nutritionally, they're as good for you as anything out of actually they're better than a can. But
I don't buy
fresh
cans.
vegetables. Yeah,
And
eat fresh.
tastes like tin food.
Yeah. Oh, and speaking of that, I just got an email, and I don't know how many of you have gotten that email as well. Evidently, the farmers market thing, there's more tickets for that at Benson. So, yeah. So if you need to get a ticket, let me know. Or, if you have Sabrina's address, contact her, call the center, because they're signing people up so that you can go get, basically free produce, right?
Come.
I thought you
That's-
had to have certain qualifications for that.
You say
Yes.
what now?
You have to have
Are we allowed
certain,
for the second round?
It's qualifications, you have to have lower income to enter that.
We have.
And you're
low
also talking
income.
about Fulton County, I believe. I go to
Yeah.
Mills, but I live in DeKalb County, actually.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know.
What about second round?
Yeah, it probably is just Fulton County residents. Yeah, and it's lower income. I don't know what all the qualifications are. I just know that they still have, slots available for people to get, produce.
Okay, I got mine. I can go again. They gave me 2 huge tomatoes, and they are good.
Okay. Anyway,
Yeah.
all right. So
you want to go along that route real quick, Charles, we're talking about renewal or membership qualifications at the mental.
oh yeah.
I did talk to Ron, and he was very emphatic that
Mhm.
that's the way it is. And I told him I would not do it.
John, it's easy, John. It's no big deal.
Well, no, it is. It is. a
Yeah,
big deal.
it's
No.
okay, Armando. Here's the thing. It's
Uh-huh.
not that it's difficult. Okay, it's kind of, is it really within their rights, as a government institution who's supposed to be serving you, as a citizen, to actually screen you that way.
But what happened if you
Actually,
don't remember? If you
I
don't
actually
remember
talked to somebody at the Council
I'm
of
sorry.
Aging. I actually talked to somebody at the Council of Aging and on Prior Street, and he had no clue what I was talking about. He was not aware of that.
Right. Yeah. And I think this is something that they're, I don't, I mean, they're certainly not making a big public announcement about it, that we're doing that kind of screening. But yeah, it's, and again, my personal opinion about it. I personally feel like it's a bit intrusive and that they're kind of stepping across the line.
Me too.
That's it. I agree. That's why I told him. And he just said that's the way it is. You call and make an appointment spend half an hour with me.
It's not half an hour, no.
Yeah, but and see, that's where I would.
Well,
I
they
would
told
find
me,
I would find another way of doing it, because I think there are people that you can talk to that would probably understand, your particular viewpoint on that.
Well, I found on the Benson website, they have an application for membership or renewal.
Mhm.
So I completed that and mailed it to Ron. So it's a physical membership application that is on the Benson website.
Okay.
Mm.
All right.
Have to see how he responds to that.
Yeah, I was going to say, let me know how, what happens from there.
Yeah, I brought that up just because we had discussed it.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
John, can I ask you a question? Does someone actually upkeep the Benson website?
Supposedly, yes, he said.
Well, I mean, I'm asking you as someone who looks at it, because the mill site is not, it's never really updated well at all.
They had the correct closing dates that they weren't going to be open for Labor Day, and
Right.
so there's a very minimal upkeep on it. So
Yeah.
there's some update.
Yeah, I think there is actually someone who is like on the Benson board who does actually update the website with events and things like that on a regular basis.
So I don't want to go on and on talking about something that's not the art class, but maybe Charles, I'll ask you separately. It seems like it's different for different Fulton County. In other words, it's not one person who's updating stuff for all the senior centers on Fulton County.
No, each center has their sort of board, right? Of
Okay.
participants.
Then I'll deal with Mill. I mean, Mills is, you couldn't get any good information on Mills when the last few times I've tried to.
And they're all autonomous. I tried to get. I said, why isn't there one email for all the centers? What's going on? Why would I not want to go over to Bowdoin for lunch?
Right.
But I have no indication of that, of that. But I'm of the opinion there should be one communication that includes all the centers and what's going on. That if you wanted to go to a different center, you could. You get that membership.
Okay. I guess here's what I'll say, and we'll kind of wrap this conversation up. Okay.
Yeah.
When we were physically going to the centers, there was a thing called a suggestion box. Okay. And I know at Benson for sure that we had at least 2 of them. Okay. On site.
Right.
And my standard answer to any of you was, if there's something that you like, if there's something you don't like, if there's something you feel needs to be addressed, that suggestion box was always the way to get it to somebody who would look at it, actually read it, and then respond. Okay. If you left your name, they would actually respond directly to you. A lot of times, Sabrina, she would have her little, like, twice a month, interruptions into your lunch hour where she would go over stuff and she would discuss all the stuff in that suggestion box, that would be relevant. Right. Now, I think, I really don't know what they have set up, but, I think maybe on the website or an email is probably, under the circumstances we're in now, or even a phone call for that matter of fact. But I would call, your first line is going to be whoever answers the phone at Benson. But, ultimately, you can talk to Sabrina. She's the manager of that facility. Okay?
Usually Linda answers the phone.
Yeah. Well, I think he's there on site more than just about anybody else.
Yeah.
Charles, I got your email that you were going to learn some more about this Zoom stuff.
Yeah.
Does that mean does that mean you will not hold these classes on like Thursday?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Tomorrow, Thursday, and Friday I will be in a conference.
Okay.
But next Monday.
So we'll start back Monday.
Right.
Okay.
Same normal schedule. Nothing unusual about it. Okay.
Well, usually on Tuesdays and Thursdays are my 2 better days because of the afternoon.
Right.
So
Okay.
That's what I was asking. I'm not going to turn the computer on if you're not zooming. So that's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So guess what? All right. We only have 8 of us. Well, 7 of you here and me. So off we go. We're going to look at what got sent in, and we're going to talk a little bit about all of those things. And that should do it. You know, I mean, that should probably fill our time. So I'm going to share the screen, and we're going to start looking at stuff. You know, and then I actually backed that up with a bunch of stuff in case we had more time, but I don't think we will. Pick that one instead of Armando. Come on.
That's a piece of art.
Hmm? All right. So everybody see a drawing of the still life that we did on Friday?
Yes.
Okay, and done on September the 3rd of 2021. And Armando actually did this. This is Armando's drawing from Friday. And Armando got a little color out, got very creative, started spreading color around, and you did a pretty nice job. You know, you got all the elements in there, so you took on a lot of stuff, right? You know, and overall, like I said, you know, for I guess this was about an hour and a half long drawing, maybe an hour and 40 minutes. You know, you got all the elements in there and everything is positioned fairly well in relationship to each other. Overall, the proportions feel pretty good, okay? Now, the thing is, the skull is getting ready to fall off the table.
Yes.
Nothing like killing a dead squirrel, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, you could have moved the table over to the right, just ever so slightly, right? But, you know, that's a little thing. So, but I'm just, you know, I'm happy to see you got it all in there. And that was quite a challenge. So let me ask you, what do you think what was the most difficult thing for you about doing that drawing?
The lady's face.
Okay, and why do you think that the portrait of the woman was so difficult?
I don't know. I'm still having problem to make faces. So now I challenge myself all the time to make faces. I don't care if I get an ugly one, but I just have to. One day, I guess I get it right.
Good. Yeah. See, that's what we call, you know, running toward the roar. Okay. Anybody ever hear that term?
No,
Anybody?
no, I haven't.
No? Okay. You know, I'll tell you that story because, you know, that's basically what art is all about. And so is most of life, actually. Okay. It's an old African proverb. Okay. And basically what they say is that the animals who survive are the ones who run toward the roar instead of away from it. Okay. And the reality of that is that's true. You know, if a prey animal hears the lion coming and roaring, you always want to run toward that roar rather than away from it. Because if you're running toward the roar, you're running toward, you know, the old male lions who are out there roaring, and they don't do a lot of hunting. They make a lot of noise, okay? If you run away from it, all the females are waiting for you, and they're the ones who do all the hunting and killing. So you run toward the roar, you know. And how that applies to what we're doing here, art, is if you have something that you think you're not good at, right? Like drawing faces or the figure or something like that, rather than trying to avoid it, that's an open invitation to dive in and draw, you know, paint, work with it as much as you can. The more you learn about it, the better you're going to become at it, you know? And I mean, you know, again, you know, it's like whatever you feel, you know, as though you don't do well, you can always strengthen that skill. But there's only one way to do it. you know, and that's to practice, you know, to actually, you know, pick up a brush, mix color, paint, you know, whatever it is, right? And I'll guarantee you, you know, that if you practice, you're going to get better, all right? If you don't practice, you're not going to get any better at it, okay? You know, you can sit and watch all the YouTube videos you want on painting technique and everything else, but until you actually get a brush in your hand, you actually start doing some of this stuff, you know, it's not going to get better, okay? So that's good, Armando. I want to commend you for jumping in and, you know, trying to draw something that you're uncomfortable with, and that's fine, okay? And in fact, you know, if we really look at this, you know, particular drawing, come on, my computer, my little pad is acting up here. Okay, that's not too bad of a face, okay, or a head or a body. You know, you did pretty well with that. You know, you found a good overall shape. You got her neck and her shoulders in. You got the dress draped, you know, around the body. So, okay, that works. So, good job.
Thanks.
All right. So, moving on down here, we have, who's next? Ah, Miss June. June Wang.
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, I know. Okay. So speaking of heads and faces and things like that, June's been working a lot on drawing people, and she's gotten really pretty good at it.
Thank you.
These are some pretty nice drawings. Your the other thing is your line quality. You know, using like different types of line are getting much better. Okay.
Okay,
Overall.
thank you.
So you're getting some good variety and stuff in there. You know, on this guy, you know, you weren't thinking about line quite so much, but you know, you've got a nice kind of fluid line. On her, it's getting a little better. You know, you kind of emphasize, you know, the front plane of the face to really draw your eye up here. Everything else kind of remained a little bit, you know, less defined. And then on her, you know, you've got a really nice face working. You know, and you got, you know, kind of your stronger outlines, some of almost, it's more like a tone, but you're still kind of laying it down in a kind of a lineal way. So, but, you know, again, you know, you've got a nice feel to that drawing. You've got also this, come on, there we go. Now this is from Friday, and this is your, you know, the class, you know, drawing that we did. And, you know, much like Armando, you know, you took on kind of the whole thing. You didn't, you know, just focus in. And you've got all the elements in there. Overall, scale proportions of things, you know, look pretty good. You know, the still life here might be overall a little bit small in comparison to all the rest of this, but, you know,
Yeah.
could be. You know, I mean, it could be, it's within that range.
Designed your skeleton head.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what?
I said she drew in something other than your skeleton head.
Yeah. And this, you know, I mean, this is close to falling off the edge of the table, but it's still on there, okay? And it's not leaning over, so that's good. Again, you know, pretty good face. You recognize that as a palette. You know, you've got your lemon and your orange there. Yeah. One thing about, you know, like your little still life here, right? Your ellipses, okay, on the openings of these. All right, these, you know, the ones on the top feel pretty good, right? But when you get down here to the bottom, see how you flatten that out?
Yes.
It needs room.
See
It still has to be curved, okay?
Yes. Yeah.
See, unless our eye level is like way down here, you know,
Mhm.
right at the bottom of that, it's not going to be a straight line. It's always going to have
Straight. Yes.
a curve to it. Okay.
Okay.
So just watch little things like that. Okay. And then finally, the final piece you did was you tried to do the queen. Okay.
Yeah.
Ah.
And you kind of got her, you know. The eyes are a little bit scary. Okay.
Yeah.
And the reason being, it's like this eye. Okay, you kind of feel like that eye is a little bit round, right?
Hmm.
Because you kind of see the eye socket, you know, and then the curve of the eye is okay, you know. So that looks a little more like an eye. This one you flattened out quite a bit.
Flat down. Yeah.
So it almost does a Pablo Picasso on you, where it kind of goes, you know, like a cubist drawing, right? One side of the face is flat, the other side is a little more natural and rounded. So the thing is, you know, with this, it's like, don't take the line and stop right at that edge. See, go ahead and just, you know, bring it back under, you know, have it kind of curve and hook.
Okay.
Yeah, because what you're saying is, okay, well, you can see past that eye, but the eye doesn't stop right there at that edge. It keeps going. See?
Well, that's nice. This one is nice.
And so that would round that out so that you're, and you'd kind of do it on the bottom, but here on the top, you just kind of end it kind of flat. So.
Oh, I see. Yes.
Yeah, so be careful with that, you know, and I know it's like a really little tiny thing, but it does make a big difference. Okay. You know, particularly when you're doing like 3/4 views, you know, of people's faces and things like that. Because, you know, those features will, you know, they will go around that, you know, the turn of that face there.
Thank you.
All right. But overall, I mean, it's a really nice drawing. Okay. You know, you got some kind of soft, you know, change in value and modeling on the face so that the back side of the face is more in shadow. Now, one thing that also could help make that look a little bit rounder, you see how you darken the area of the cheekbone, you know, and that whole front plane? Well, the thing is, you didn't really carry it up here to the forehead. And if you notice, like on her forehead, see, it gets darker as it moves toward that edge. See, it's lightest.
Yes, yes, yeah.
And then it gets darker. And yours, not so much. So you see a little darker value over there, you know, probably could have helped, you know, turn that a little bit. Okay?
Okay. Thank you so much.
Sure. Okay. And then we got Lorraine. Now, Lorraine went back in and she evidently got out some pencils that were a little bit softer and a little bit darker. And she added a little more punch to her drawing. And it helped. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it really kind of, you know, the fist and everything comes forward, then you get the face. And so.
Did she sit on the mirror?
Pardon?
Did she sit in front of the mirror and try to draw herself?
Lorraine.
No, it's from a photograph.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah. But now you had started this a while ago, right?
Yeah, no, this is the drawing, the original one without the upgrade I did was from a few years ago, actually.
Okay, all right. So you basically just went back in and punched up some of your darks. And what did you end up using to do that?
I don't have them right here. I have a set of pencils that I found that I had, but they're not, I don't think they're charcoal, but it's something like that rather than kind of lead pencils. So you're right, they're very soft, and they were, and I tested them out, and this one was one of the darker ones because I wanted to get it kind of dark enough to counter the darkness around the fist. So.
Right. Yeah, and the face. And so, you know, by pushing those values down, you know, you begin to see that there's more form, you know, to the shapes like in your hand, things like that. then those value structures actually seem to make sense, because the dark that you put in, okay, so that's the dark and the shadow. And then most of what you had down there before kind of falls into what we call the middle value range,
Okay.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, anywhere that you didn't add pencil, right, then you have your lights, right? So now you've got dark, middle, lights. Originally in your drawing, you had midtones and you had lights, but you didn't really have any strong shadows. So
Yeah,
now
around
you're-
the face and head.
right. So now you're getting a much broader range of value. And one of the issues in trying to draw in a monochromatic media is the fact that you have to understand value and the value structure, and you have to have a minimum of 5 values to turn form, right? So you have to have light, you have to have dark, you got to have a midtone, and then it's finding that middle dark and that middle light, and that will kind of complete that range of value for you, so that you can actually turn form, you know, on any kind of object. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it's a face or an apple or anything else. You know, having those value ranges in there will help you. Okay. And you know, surprisingly enough, it's like a lot of people think that, okay, well, I'm drawing a white piece of fabric, like a shirt or something, on somebody, and they think because it's white that some of those folds and values in those folds don't get that dark. But if you took a photograph of someone and then you converted it to black and white, like in the folds of a white shirt and stuff like that, it gets pretty dark.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it may not be black, right, like a number 10 value, but it might be in that 7 or 8 range, right, which is still pretty dark. You know, it's still much darker than, say, most of your skin tones and things like that. So, you know, your actual local color, whether it's overall light or dark, has some effect on it. But, you know, if something is falling into shadow, even if it is a light object, you know, it can get pretty dark. Okay, so just keep that in mind. And then you sent in this as well, and you told me a little bit about it. So you had to pick 5 elements that sort of represented you, right?
Yeah, it was a class where that's what they was said. Take 5, 6, 7, you know, whatever number of elements
Mhm.
that you could put together into a still life. And the whole idea there was, you know, then people would be able to say something about what that is and tell something about themselves too. But it's one of the drawings that I remember doing in one of the Calomel classes. It obviously is not finished, although I liked it like this, even though the drapery and everything that was leaning on, I didn't do. I kind of like this the way it is without the filling in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think depending on, and this is a pen and ink, is this correct?
I even forget if it's pencil or pen and ink. It might be
Yeah,
pen and ink.
I'm kind of doubting. Going. All right, sorry about that. I'm kind of doubting that it's pencil. It looks more like pen and ink.
It could be. It
Yeah,
could
the
be.
reason-
I drew it and then did it over it with pen. Usually if I do a pen and ink, it won't be direct. I'm not that sure with, so it'll be, I'll do a pencil and then a sketch and then I'll do it over with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. I'm saying this, you know, just, you know, I get the impression that this is a pen line, you know, because of how you did the shading, you know, on a lot of this, you know, it's very lineal. And so, yeah, I would venture to guess that this is, you know, this is kind of a pen drawing. you know, like a fine tip pen or marker, because it doesn't look like pencil is a medium. It's not
Okay.
that soft. So
It might have been charcoal again. I hate to say I really don't remember. I'd have to look at it closely myself, you know, look at the actual thing.
yeah, it doesn't feel like charcoal to me either.
No, okay.
Yeah, kind of like I said, it feels like pen line, which has a very distinctive look, you know, and the way that you handled, you know, getting your values even on these dark surfaces is, you know, that's a nice approach. You know, you handled it really well. As far as whether or not you go back in and you finish the drapery, you know, that's a judgment call. You know, I mean, I guess if I were going to leave that, you know, unfinished, for me, I would say I would have probably left out like a lot of the real detailed lines in there and simplified it, you know, just
Yeah.
in a lighter shape. Because it gets a little busy with all the line work in here for all the folds.
Yeah.
And unless I was going to use them, I would just kind of leave them out. But again, you know, like you said, you know, in a way, it's kind of, it works, you know, the way that it is, because you've focused on really the elements that you wanted to focus on. And then this is sort of just a background. So, you know, the drapery itself doesn't really say anything necessarily about you. So I don't know that you have to have it, but you got your pool cue and your hat. I like your hat, by the way. That's I've got a hat like that, kind of, you know, that's one of my painting hats. And then this looks like a pair of shoes back here.
It's the pool shoes, you know, the ones you have to put on when you go in the pool.
Oh, yeah.
In the centers, yeah.
Okay. All right. And then you got a palette back there with a brush. What's the deal about the kitty?
Well, it's a little statue. It's a handmade statue I made of my cat that I had at that point. So that's Sasha, but it was a little, like I said, handmade pottery kind of thing.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I was looking at it. It's like, okay. I mean, it could be like a ceramic piece, but you know, it says cat, so you're a cat lover. You know, are you firmly a cat lover, anti-dog, or are you kind of?
No, I'm not anti-dog. Just no, just prefer cats and
easier to live with. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not, you know, when people have dogs, I think they're great. They'll come up to me. Dogs are still friendly to me, and I like dogs, but I wouldn't want to have a dog, actually.
Right. Yeah. I'm there with you. I've been there. I'm on pet sabbatical for the rest of my life. No more cats, no more dogs.
No?
No. I don't even want flowers, you know. I mean,
nothing living beside you in your room.
Well, you know, me and Maria, and that's pretty much so it, you know. I mean,
okay, you don't live alone. Okay.
No.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What would happen if you used like a very light wash where the drapery is to push the rest of the stuff even more forward? Because what she's got in there in pen and ink is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
But I wondered, my question was, would it affect it by putting a wash, which she doesn't have in any of that?
Right.
But you don't want to in it, because then it would, I think it'd be too much. But I was just wondering if it would help or hurt the picture that she has.
Well, okay. I guess the way I would kind of approach that is, right now the fabric is very minimal. It's just line. And if she were to go back in there, I think maybe using a wash, as you suggested, might be a good idea, because it would be different than the kind of the hard line edge that she's got with the pen marks. and she could keep the value structure really kind of minimal. So it feels softer and it's back there, but it doesn't dominate anything else. She would just have to kind of be very careful, like in these folds and things,
Right.
to not push them too dark,
Right.
right? And get anything that's really going to compete with, you know, the elements that she's got in there. But that's actually a pretty good suggestion, you know, to go at it with a wash rather than trying to go back in and fill in those values in pen line. And yeah, that might work pretty well actually. So that's, you know, yeah. What do you think of that, Lorraine?
Really honest,
Mhm.
I would not, I'm not going to do anything else on this.
Okay.
I fear that if I tried to do something, it would just really take away from what I like about it, which is the elements and how they fit together.
Okay. Now this looks like it's in a sketchbook, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And is this like on a bond paper, like a bond paper sketchbook?
Yeah. Versus what? I mean, bond versus what kind of paper?
Well, I mean, you can get books with mixed media paper, watercolor.
Oh, yeah. It's not a mixed media watercolor, so I guess it's just a drawing pad.
Right.
Whatever that usual kind of paper is.
Yeah.
And I don't have it in front of me again. I could tell you the weight or anything, but.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Usually most of your sketch pads with white paper in it are bond paper. Okay. It's just
And that would not take a wash well.
no. No, it would not actually. So yeah. So that might not work well on that type of paper. And you know, but you can get different not drawing pads, but you can get different pads of paper now for all kinds of different things, you know, and some of them are like mixed media pads, things like that. So you can draw and paint in them. Some of them are strictly for like water media or watercolor. And then others.
Yeah, I have bought watercolor paper. The mixed media is interesting. You're saying it's called mixed media because you could paint or draw or do any kind of charcoal or anything on it?
Pretty much so, yeah. Yeah, that's what it's made for.
How do they do that? That's
yeah. Well, there's, again, you know, there's different types of mixed media paper, you know, different manufacturers, but both Canson and Strathmore make a mixed media pad that are really pretty versatile. And, you know, you can do pen line like you've done, and then you can actually do watercolor or gouache or some kind of water media in the background or on it as well. And if you're using like India ink, once that's dry, you don't have to worry about it ever moving. It's not going to go anywhere, and it's not going to dissolve. One of the problems with doing pen line work, if you use those fine line pens and things like that you can buy in the art store, they say that they're quote unquote permanent, right? But reality is, if you ever, you know, just do a little test and put a little water down over them and leave it there for a minute, some of them will actually begin to bleed and diffuse. And that isn't permanent in my book. You know, I don't know if it is in anybody else's. But yeah, you know, if you're working with different pens and things like that, you have to be careful. And, you know, and then kind of play with them, test them, see what you can do with them, and different media and stuff that you can use them with. And I wouldn't do it like in the middle of a piece that I really cared about. But if you're just playing around, you know, just taking and doing like a little sketch or scribble and then trying to put watercolor over it or try to put acrylic or oil or something else over it and see how that media works with the pen line. You know, you can find different materials and things that will actually work together fairly well, you know, where it won't dissolve that line and the drawing will still be there, but you can add color.
It's interesting because the only a few things I remember, you know, when I was doing a little trying watercolor and trying to learn how to use it.
Mhm.
I would do I put the watercolor, all of that down first
Mhm.
and let it dry and then use a pen and ink. And
Mhm.
that worked fine. But
Yeah.
I would never try it the other way. I would figure that it would, you know, exactly what you're saying is that you're going to dissolve the lines or you're going to blur them or whatever.
Yeah. Well, again, you know, it depends on the pen.
Okay.
Illustrators for literally almost hundreds of years now have done pen line drawings in pen and ink. And, you know, and you can use India ink either in a pen, like a quill pen, something like that, or you can use it with a brush. And if you look at, you know, a lot of the art that, say, Leyendecker did, you know, his illustrations, things like that, they were all India ink pen line, and then he would work over them with watercolor, because once that India ink is dry, it's permanent. It's not ever going to go anywhere. And so you can layer color over it. Actually, N.C. Wyeth, who was another illustrator from the golden age of illustrations, a lot of his, what they would call them comps, they were like preliminary steps before he would do the final illustration for the book. A lot of the times he would do his drawing in pen and ink, and he would work over that with oil paint, like oil washes and stuff. And again, you know, that pen and ink, it's not going to go anywhere. And a lot of his pen and ink stuff, rather than using like a steel tip pen, he used like real fine brushes, and he would, you know, do his drawing in pen and ink on a canvas or on a panel, you know, with the Indian ink, let that totally dry, and then go over it with oil. And, you know,
So let me ask you,
Mhm.
are there any pens that use India ink? In other words, a situation where it's not a brush,
Mhm.
and you're not having a quill pen where you're dipping and doing that, but it has its own container of
Right.
the ink, and it is that kind of permanent
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. You can get, you know, you can get actual pens. Now, a lot of times, you know, the pens that you'll get will be these kind of mechanical pens that you have to load the ink into, and you can refill
okay.
well, and you just put India ink, but they're made, you know, to use India ink. And I think like Mars Stadler, you know, and Kohner, I think they both make, you know, I've got a couple of sets of mechanical pens here because I used to do a lot of illustration, and that's what I would use. You know, but again, you know, you're loading them with actual India ink and then using that. What most artists and illustrators use are those metal tip quill pens, because you can just dip it in and then draw. Okay.
So that's a matter of learning how to use that kind of pen.
A little bit. There's not really too much of a learning curve on it. You just have to kind of learn not to overload them. Now the mechanical pens, you know, those are good for doing like, you know, really consistent line, you know, because the line doesn't vary, you know, because you got different pen tips. So if it says like a 0.01 or a 0.001, you know that's going to be a really fine line, right? And the thing is, it's never going to get bigger. You know, it's always going to be that really fine line. And, you know, when you get up to like a 0.6 or something like that, then it will be kind of a fatter line, right? So you know, it's pretty close to the approach that you took, I think, here with this drawing, you know, where your pen lines, you know, you built them up, you know, by working one layer over another. But there's actually pen sets with thicker, you know, points and then thinner points that you could use. Now, along with that, there's other pens out there. And like I said, you got to play with them for a little bit. And you want to experiment with them before you try to use them, on a regular basis as a technique, because some of them say that they're permanent.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of them are not, but some of them are, like Sharpie, for example. Okay.
Mm.
You could take a Sharpie, and once you put that line down and you let it dry, you could put watercolor over it, wash, oil, it doesn't matter. That Sharpie is not going to go away, and it's not going to bleed when it gets wet. Okay. So it's a very permanent, it's like once it's dry, it's not going to go anywhere. And that's what you want.
Yeah.
For that type of technique, right?
Thank you.
Okay. So anybody got anything else they want to say before we move on here? It's 2:55.
I'd just like to know the pens that you find that are ink pens, will it tell you that it's Indian ink or it's just an ink pen?
Well, what they'll say is that it's permanent ink. And I always take that with a grain of salt, because I've bought lots of pens because they said they were permanent, thinking that they were like India ink and that I could work over them, and found out, unfortunately, that's not true. So that's what I'm saying. You got to kind of buy one or two of them as a test, and then go play with it, test it, and see what you can do with it.
Are there pens that say Indian ink?
I don't think so. I don't think so. Now, like I said, you can go out and buy a set of like mechanical pens, from like Kohler or Morris Statler, and they don't come with any ink in them. They come with ink wells, and you fill it with India ink, and that's what you draw with. But I think you could also put like these acrylic-based inks and other things in them, other than just India ink, right? So there's, different pens that you can work with. For ease of use, anytime, I'm working with a pen line drawing, and also just because I kind of like the tool itself, I like those metal quill pins, those metal tips, because you can get different tips, and you can get like the really fine one, that you can do lots of little, fine lines and detail with. But you can also, because it's very flexible, you can also get line variation in them that you can't get with a mechanical pen. And that's, that's kind of what old school illustrators drew with mainly, was those steel tips, on a pen nib. And those work great. You just have to get used to using them, as a tool. The other thing you can use is a very fine line brush. Get yourself like a rigger, and then again, you can draw with that brush in India ink. And once that India ink is down, it's not going anywhere. And then you can work over it, with all kinds of different media. So, okay. All right. So now, everybody here, how many we got now? Some people have snuck in. We have 10. Yay! Okay, so everybody knows that I'm not going to be here tomorrow, Thursday, and Friday. Is that correct? Okay. All right. Good. And then yeah, you don't have to put up with me for a few days.
Can we go with you?
Can you? Well, you can't go with me because I'm not going. I'll be right here. I will be on the computer from 10 a.m. in the morning till 8 o'clock at night.
Oh my!
3 days.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they give you. There's like 2 breaks during the day that are about 45 minutes each. Other than that, they've got programming.
Okay.
And then again, it's this multimedia type thing that we're all trying to learn and get used to. one of the things interesting is, they're running all of this through Facebook. And so it's like Zoom, but it's not Zoom. It's a Facebook, kind of interactive thing. And so it's like, once you log into it, while the actual presentations are not going on, you have an opportunity to basically, chat with people via video on Facebook, so, and I think.
Is that the room creation? Is that those things
Uh-huh.
about create your room? Is that
Yeah.
what they're using?
Yeah, something like that.
Interesting.
Yeah, now I've never used that, so it'll be my first time, playing with that. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. And yes.
This is just another answer to Zoom, another competitor that is,
Yeah.
I want to go through their product.
Yeah. Well, it's if you're on Facebook, but it doesn't. This doesn't just apply to Facebook. I mean, you can use it on Facebook. You can use it on Zoom. Mainly, what this conference is about talking about how developers, that would be somebody like me, right, who's creating content. I'm putting on a class. All right, it's like, how do I find resources? How do I do like video editing? And add, sound and various things, to the things that I'm creating, right? And then how do I deliver it? How do I deliver it to you? And make it more accessible so that when I'm showing you something here on the screen, it's something that you can link to or download or get on your own computer so that you can, view it.
Would it help you to demonstrate something like you're talking about, like say, show somebody how to do a specific?
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of what I'm hoping is that I can get some pointers into, how can I interact with people, in a live way? What kind of equipment, what kind of setup, what kind of lighting do I need, so that I can actually do, a real time. Like I'm talking to Lorraine about, using like a quill pen, and maybe I could get out a quill pen and actually show her, the different media and stuff that I'm using.
That would be terrific. That would be terrific.
Yeah, because a lot of this stuff, I mean, it sounds good in theory, but then you got to put it into practice, right? And most of us being, right-brained, we pretty much, we learn visually, right? We see somebody do something and it's like, oh, okay, that's how you do it. And that kind of begins to stick with us, right? Learning all the theory, is not necessarily something that we're really good at. It doesn't stick, because we get down.
Is right, but what you see visually helps more.
Yeah. Well, and that's because you tend to be one of those artistic people who you tend to be a visual learner. That's how you do it. That's one of the big drawbacks with a DIY, like these books, like build furniture and stuff like that. Well, they have, they do have some diagrams and things like that, but reality is, until you get in there with a saw and you start actually cutting boards and trying to do some of this stuff, some of that isn't that easy to figure out. So, seeing it done always answers a lot of questions for people.
Yes.
So anyway, I'm hoping to get some of that, from this conference, and maybe we can find, since we're going to, make this a sustainable effort over a good number of years to try to, present content this way, finding better ways of doing this would be, I think worthwhile.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's the only reason that I'm leaving you on your own for 3 days. But hey, guess what? That's a great opportunity for each and every one of you to create mayhem and to get paint out and everything else and just, you know, play. See, you know, unfettered. You know, you don't have to, you know, you don't have to hear anything from me about, you know, right, wrong, or otherwise, you know, and you know, see what you get. You might come up with something great. You never know, right? So anyway,
That'll be 2 hours a day we can dedicate to painting.
yeah, it's 2 more hours that you got to, you know, to figure out, what it is that you're going to do, right? So speaking of which, you guys know that, you know, I just cleaned up my studio space up here, you know, and kind of cleared a bunch of stuff out. And I've been rather dedicated about digging through boxes, right? And lo and behold, I opened up a box. And within that box was my old art director's set of markers. Okay. And I know that, who is it? It's Wanda and Bernice sometimes use these colored markers, right? To do a lot of their art. And the only thing with markers are they're not that archival, right? You know, because part of it is the paper that you work on.
Fast.
Yeah, but they're not as color fast
No,
over in the long term.
they fade.
Right. But, you know, when I was working as an art director, they were great tools because, you know, they're easy to pick up and work with very quickly. They're pretty flexible, really. Okay. And so since I got them out, you know, I started kind of playing around with stuff. And, you know, and actually I came up with a few things. So one of the first things I came across was I had a whole set of brush pins. Okay. And I used to love brush pins, you know.
Zumba is starting in the
What are you saying? Brush what?
A brush pin,
P-I-N?
P-E-N.
Pen. Oh, brush
Pen.
pen. Okay.
Yeah, brush pen. Just like this one. See, I'll hold it up in front of me.
Can you take it off of share so we can see you, actually?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, okay. Yeah, I will. I'll go back to it. Yeah. Okay. So it's this. Okay. And this happens to be, this is a Faber-Castell, and this is it's their Pitt artist pen. Now these come with different points. This actually happens to be a fine tip point. So this is like one of the pens I was talking about with you, Lorraine, that you got to kind of try these out. Now, as I remember, these were actually really, really good to do a drawing with. And then I would use my color markers over them and they wouldn't smear. Okay.
Well,
Excuse me, Charles, what brand is it?
It's Faber-Castell, spelled F-A-B-E-R.
yeah.
C-A-S-T-E-L-L, Faber-Castell.
Well,
Okay.
Yes, I got it. Thank you.
Charles,
Yes.
I have a set of 4 of those pens, and one is M, the other one is S,
Right. Yeah.
F,
Yes.
B.
Yeah. Yeah. The B is
Got
the
it
brush.
set.
Right.
I
Yeah.
never had used it because I don't know yet how to use it.
Well, how you use it is you get a pad of paper and you start making marks. Okay.
That'll help.
And then you start making marks and you find out what kind of marks they'll make, right?
Uh-huh.
And then, you know, as you start making marks, you'll find out that there's certain ones that you like the marks better than others. Okay. Like, for example, okay. Gee, I really need to do something about this trackpad. Okay. Like, for example, come on. All right. Can everybody see that drawing?
Uh-huh.
Yes.
That was done with a brush pen. Okay.
Oh.
is
Which
what I-
one? What letter you use on that one?
A B.
A B. Okay.
Yeah, the brush. Okay. And so,
Oh,
you know,
the B is the brush.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So I just started sketching, right? And I did a whole bunch of drawings. Let's see, like that one. And those are all done with a brush pen. And the reason I like a brush pen better than I do, like, you know, that fine line pen is it's more expressive. I can change the weight of the line, you know, because of the pressure, see, or the angle that I hold it at, right? So it comes out with a much more interesting line to me than, you know, just a straight, you know, like mechanical pen feel.
Yeah.
So I did a bunch of those. And like, come on. Yeah. And so you see, you know, now maybe in here, you know, I probably should have not been lazy, and I probably should have picked up like that fine line pen just to lay in sort of the tone and the shadows and stuff like that, and gotten a little more contrast, right? No, but again, I was just kind of doodling around. I didn't have anything specific in mind, but I wanted to play with them. Okay, so then I took it and I did a couple of those. And again, this is that Morris Stadler brush pen. And then I use my markers with it. And there are these, I have a whole set of these
I see. Yes.
Prismacolor markers. And they have like a real fine tip on them, but they've also got, you know, like a broad wedge on the other side. See? And I've got a whole set of gray markers. So it comes very light to black, right? So it's all in value scale. And this is what they call French gray, which is what I call a warm gray, okay? It's got a slightly beige or brown tone to it. And so I, you know, again, I was playing around with her. I did a landscape, you know, just to kind of see how that would work out.
Now, can you paint over this?
I haven't tried that. Yeah. You know, I mean, usually, you know, when I was using these, this would kind of be the end product, you know, and that's what I would show a client. Again, it was just, you know, it was something that you could do very quickly, you know, and give them an idea of what you were talking about. Again, you know, these are not permanent, right? I did that. That's a little distorted. Makes my face look a little long. The drawing didn't look that way. I'm going to blame that one on the camera angle, but, you know.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you know, it's a nice medium to work with, you know, and again, you know, you can do drawings and stuff very quickly, and having a range of markers, you know, with a whole value scale in there is really nice, because you can go from very light values, you know, down to very dark values, and, you know, and get a good wide range of value in there.
You're
So-
saying the skin tones you did are all these markers? It looks like painting almost.
No, it's all just markers.
So they blend with each other.
Yeah, they do.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can do kind of soft gradations, you know, fairly soft gradations with them, and things like that. So they're pretty useful tools. You know, a lot of designers, you know, use them, you know, for concept sketches, things like that. You can also use them with like Prismacolor pencils or pencils, you know, if you want to create, you know, like a different texture. And in this case, I used a little bit of pencil rather than a pen line to create some of the gradations and things in the hair. You know, I did it with the marker, but I also went back in with a pencil over that and kind of reinforced it. So, yeah. So that's what I did Saturday. Was I just, you know, I drew, you know, that's what I did Friday. That was my sketch from Friday's class. So, okay. But then, what was it? Sunday. Sunday I was feeling a little pent up, and so I wanted to get out in the world, and so I went here instead. I moseyed over to just outside the gates of Dobbins Air Base, and they have a bunch of these old planes sitting out there. They're not going anywhere. Nobody's flying them. These are on display. So I know it will be there next week if I want to go back and work with it some more. But this is what they call an A6. I think the Army has this, and this is a Navy plane. The Army paints them dark green, and they call them a warthog. But yeah, it's one of the things that they used, like in Iraq and places like that. Anyway, so that was my subject. This is kind of what I did with it. And this is about a 2.5 hour painting. And this is fairly small. It's 8 by 10, and I eliminated the plane that was behind this. I left it out. Just put it in the tree line. See, you can use your artistic license every once in a while. And then they had,
too.
yeah, then they had this little like, area with, I couldn't get inside the fence, so I couldn't tell you what the stones actually said, but, I just kind of moved it over into the composition and used it.
Oh, okay.
See, to make, to pull something here in the foreground, because otherwise, you have some fairly, horizontal elements in there, and it would just like 1, 2, 3, right? So, I wanted something to break that up, so I brought this in. And in hindsight, I guess if I were going to do this again, I probably would take these calla lilies, and I probably would have made them a little taller and had them break that line right there. I think that would have been, a better solution there. But
Would you I back up to the plane?
yeah. So, and I still could, I mean, the paint is still, well, it's probably fairly dry on this now. Like I said, it was Sunday when I did this, Sunday afternoon. And so, I went out there, that's my paint box. And so this is about, probably 20 or 30 minutes into the painting, just kind of putting in the blocks, kind of figuring out where I'm going to put stuff, and this is oil. And this is, this is a little plein air box that I have. And it's about 12 inches wide, and probably about 6 inches, 5, 6 inches deep. It comes with a palette, so you put your paint in there. This opens up, and there are some places for your brushes and rags and stuff like that down there. And it just sits on a tripod. So you could, in fact, pack everything you need right into this box, including your canvas and everything else, and then just traipse out, in the middle of the field somewhere, set it up and paint. And you don't have to carry like a lot of extra stuff with you, okay? So I was fairly happy doing that. So then on Monday, I decided to took us out the door a little bit earlier, rather than starting at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Decided to, head out a little bit early. So about 10:30 I left here. And I went over to Kennesaw, to the battlefield. And I sat up over, and I'd never been there before, but it's called Farm. And evidently, this was part of a fairly good-sized farm in an old cabin that belonged to the Kalb family. And it got captured by Union troops, and they used it as a headquarters, during the siege on Atlanta. And so again, you know, got my little table out there, got some paint, and got my paint box. And so, you know, I worked out there for about 3 hours. And, you know, that's more or less what I ended up with, you know, after that 3 hours. So, you know, it was a good start to the day. And, you know, the weather was somewhat cooperative. You know, the sun was kind of going in and out, which I was fine with, because for the most part, it looked pretty flat. But every once in a while, you know, the clouds would open up and you'd get like these spots of light. And so I tried to get, you know, some of that. And then later that afternoon, I went over to a different spot on the battlefield and painted this. And, you know, it's just it's just a couple of tree lines out there in the field. And, you know, the grass was pretty high. And they had a lot of interesting stuff growing, you know, in between the grass out there. But, you know, and it's really kind of right at that time of year where we're just beginning, some of the trees are beginning to kind of have an effect because the weather is cooling off. And so the leaves are just beginning to change just a little bit now. You know, they're still kind of green, but they're beginning to get like little touches of yellow and orange and stuff in them. So I was out there for, yeah, maybe about, you know, 2 hours. And I did this. And this is like about a 9x12. But it was a good excuse, you know, to get out, get some sunshine, you know, do a little bit of walking, you know, look around. And so anyway.
Do you ever, when you know you're not going to get through with a piece, take a photograph of when the sun comes out, like you would want to finish your painting to add to finish it up at home? And
Yeah, I always, you know, I mean, these days it's so hard, you know, because you never have a camera with you, right? Like, if you got a phone with you, you got a camera, right? So no, I don't have a problem. You know, when the light, you know, comes out and it's looking, you know, more or less the way I would like it, yeah, you know, I'll take a photo. Like the one over at Calm Farm, I probably took about 8 or 10 photos, you know, during that about 3 hours that I was out there, because when the sun would come out, yeah, I mean, you want to get it because you know it's not going to stay. You know, and sometimes that light comes out, and about the time that you reach down to grab your phone, all of a sudden it just
gone.
away. So yeah, it took me a couple. Yeah, it took me a couple of tries, but I think I got a couple of good photos of it. You know, if I wanted to go back in, and I probably wouldn't, you know, I probably wouldn't go back in and spend a lot of time trying to finish that little study that I did. But let's say that I wanted to do a bigger painting, okay? You know, something in the studio. Well, I've got that painting to work from, but I've also got the photography, you know, that's going to tell me more about the light. Really, the value of the study is it tells you more about the overall contrast and the color that you were seeing out there. And so, you know, it gives you an idea of how far you're going to push, you know, that. And of course, you know, taking, you know, something that was done in 2 hours, you don't have the time to really manipulate and play with the paint and get all the color and stuff that you want in there. So that if you go back in and you do the studio painting, what you're really focused on is, you know, how are you going to lay that paint down? You know, how are you going to introduce more color to it? How are you going to push the contrast, the value? You know, how are you going to modify, you know, the intensity or the muted aspects of some of those colors, and make it, you know, more, you know, kind of what you experienced out there. And so, you know, but, you know, I would say that probably 80 to 90% of the plein air paintings that I do, you know, I'll never take those to a finished painting. Every once in a while, you know, you get a great spot and you get a great idea about a painting, or it's just there and it all kind of falls together and you got a great composition and everything else. And you want to run back to the studio and you want to do it bigger, you know. But you know, again, you know, that's not all the time. But that doesn't make, you know, that doesn't make going out and painting on location not valuable, because it's going out and actually kind of experiencing that and really looking at the colors and the contrast and things like that, and working with the paint to try to get something like that up there. You know, that just improves your skills, but it also teaches you a lot about composition and light and everything else that you can take and then put into, you know, your studio work. So they help each other a lot. So I always recommend that people do a little both of these. All right. Anyway, that's all I got. Anybody got anything else we need to cover before?
Charles, let me ask you a question about time. I don't know if I will have 2 hours every class, so I might like stay an hour and a half or something like that.
Okay.
So I'm just telling you that because if I leave, that's why.
Okay. Well, I usually don't take it too personally when people go and do things. I figure.
I hope not.
Yeah, I figure they got stuff to do. You know, it's life.
Okay.
Yeah. But no, that's fine. You know. You know, there's no requirement that, you know, just because you come in at a particular time, you cannot leave until the very last word is said.
Okay.
Okay.
I appreciate that. Thank you for the comments before and the information about pens and ink and kinds of ink.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Very
Hey,
useful.
it's all great, fun stuff to play with. So, but you know, at the end of the day, that's what you got to do. You know, it's like you can talk about it all you want, but just get out and experiment with it and try stuff that you think is like really silly, you know, like, you know, pencil line, and then put paint on top of it, see what it happens, you know. Some pencils, that's going to work fine. Other pencils, not so good, you know. But until you do that, you don't know. But that's why you do little studies and stuff like that, you know, that are just play, rather than like, I'm going to be serious and this is going to be a great piece of art, right? Yeah. So there's, you know, there's always those things, you know, you're just going to learn stuff on. And that's what it's there for. Okay. All right.
Thank you. And thanks seeing you and nice seeing you all and getting to know people slowly.
Yeah. Okay. So on that happy note, I'm going to say goodbye. Okay.
Bye.
And we will
have fun the rest of the week.
Have a good class.
Yeah.
Don't miss us.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
I will see you guys on Monday.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Looking forward to sharing some of your knowledge with us when you come from your class.
Okay. All right.
Learning as we are. Okay.
Yeah. How are you doing? You behaving yourself?
Yes, I am very busy, but I will talk to you.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Talk
I'll
soon.
be calling.
Okay.
Love you guys. Take care. Bye.
Bye.